Right guys, hello, another video for you. What I want to do is review the new 8Bitdo arcade stick I picked up quite recently. You see in the top right hand corner of the screen, so you know I'm not lying to you, to actually own it. As always, we'll break the video down with timestamps, help you find what you want to see. Hopefully I can answer your questions, give you my overall opinion of it. We'll put some links in the description as well, so you can see videos of me having it in action. So yeah, let's get on with it. We'll start the 8Bitdo website. You can see that they do actually have a number of products. They do some retro pads. Really depends on what floats your boat. Maybe you're a Sega boy like me, that's what you grew up with, or you really like Nintendo. They've got your bases covered. So I'll just show, I do have one of the smaller pads. This is in the Famicom Jap spec colors, red, gold. They do the grey, black as well. I use this with my phone. It's not very big. It's kind of useful to have in your pocket because I'll be honest, doing emulation retro games are far better than anything you find on the Google Play Store. Also point out that I have the DualShock controller, so let's just put that in the shot to give you a size comparison. You might be thinking, why do I use this? Why do I not have an Xbox gamepad? Well, because I do emulation, so if I want to do the Nintendo Wii U and play Zelda Breath of the Wild, the tilt function on this pad is incredibly useful. And with the DS for Windows software, I can make use of that. So I can still do PC games with this pad, and I can do emulation. It just covers far more bases, so that's why I use it. So now you know. Um, we can point out they got the original stick, the N30. I nearly did buy this back in the day, but had other projects, other things on my mind at the time, and overlooked it. We see it's got that retro styling to make it look in place next to a classic NES, Nintendo Entertainment System. This looks very similar to one of its competitors, the Mayflash F300. Now, what we need to point out, the Mayflash stuff does have compatibility with consoles like the Xbox and the PlayStation. The 8BitDo stuff doesn't. Technically, it does if you want to put it for a Brook adapter, but I don't want to complicate things. Strictly speaking, out of the box, we do not have the console compatibility, so just do keep that in mind. So that's the old stick, but we want to focus on the new hotness, the new stick. So I really like the styling of it. Everyone that's seen it has said that is a serious bit of kit. That looks really nice. I'm not a Nintendo fan, but I do like the styling of it. It screams 80s. It's very retro. It's well built. It's got a fair bit of weight to it. It's not too heavy, but you just know you've got hold of something premium. Really quite happy with it. So let's go through their marketing jargon and try to make sense of everything. So they first start off talking about the 8BitDo Ultimate software. So when I first saw pictures of this stick, I saw the P1, P2, and I thought, oh, player one, player two, that's cool. It's not player one, it's not player two. These are macro buttons that we can program with the software that we can download free from the website. So to give you an example of why we want to use it, maybe you like playing Mortal Kombat, you've got your favorite character, but you can never remember those fatality moves to pull off, or you find it tricky to pull them off. You can use the software to program the P1 and P2 buttons to do either of the fatalities for your character. Maybe you want to do the ultra combos in the modern Street Fighter titles. Maybe you've got kids and they just struggle to pull off some of the special moves. So give them a helping hand, pre-program the buttons for them. Okay, some people are going to call it cheating, but I think it's a really cool feature, and you're not really seeing it on many other sticks. So that's nice to have included, and the software is very easy to use. I start talking about the dynamic button layout. You can see that the switch to the left is going from S to X. So S is for the switch, and X is X input. That's for PC, Android devices, or if you want to use it with the Raspberry Pi. We see the symbology changes depending which way we flick it, so I can do that. Turn it on. They light up. They're not stickers. It does help it feel more premium. Probably doesn't help the battery life too much, but yeah, the battery life is still pretty good on the device. We see the blue lights blinking away that it's not synced. I can show it later, but what will happen when you are synced, one of the quadrants will light up to let you know if you're player 1, 2, 3, or 4. So let's do that. I'll put it over to the 2.4G. We'll go to X input. You probably hear the dinging. Windows is going to pick it up. I'm now player 1. It was very simple to set it up. Windows 10 did it itself. It goes, oh, you've got an Xbox One pad, no drama. And that's what it sees it as. So very cool. Center position will turn the stick off. You hear the ding. It's gone. Right, so we've got the next switch, which is LS, DP, or RS. This is all to do with the lever and what function it has. So left stick, D-pad, or right thumbstick. You might be thinking, why would you need that? Well, let's try and think of a game off the top of my head. I'm trying to emulate the Sega Dreamcast to play Ikaruga. I want the ship to move forward, backwards, left, right, but it wants to use the D-pad for that. So I can set this to DP and move the stick to do that. I'm bored of Ikaruga. I want to play something else, but now I need to use a thumbstick to move the character. I can do that on the fly. Just flick that around. I can do it in the same game itself if I really want to, if that's needed. So not all sticks have that. Many of them do, but some don't. Nice to see that there. The next button we see is green. That is for pairing. Hold it down to do the Bluetooth. We see we've got a switch below that says BT or 2.4G. I actually use both. At the back of the stick, we see there's a little sticker telling me that there's a door there. If I bring that down, that is where its own USB receiver lives. I've unplugged that. That's now plugged into my PC. There are two USB ports. There's a USB-A and USB-C. So we'll just point out it comes with its own long USB cable. One end is USB-A, the other is USB-C. So USB-C I can plug into the back, shut the door, and there's a little hole just to help seal around the cable. So this will charge the battery and it will work as a wired device. So when it comes to latency and response times, wired will always be better. 2.4G will be better than Bluetooth. I own the original NVIDIA Shield, the 2015 edition. Its gamepad is 2.4. They then redesigned it later on, changed the style of the pad and moved over to Bluetooth. Many of us argue the original pad is actually better. What I like is that I've got this set up on my PC, and then if I flick it over to BT, I've paired it with my Shield TV. There's no drama for me to go between two devices. Maybe I want it set up with my phone or tablet on Bluetooth. Whatever you want to do, just minimizes drama. We've got the yellow button there, which is turbo. Think of it as rapid fire for your buttons. The blue button is a home button. We've got select and start there. We've already mentioned the two macro buttons. We have our 8 game buttons and the stick, the lever itself. Now these are not what are called competition grade parts like Sanwa or Hayabusa, these brands you'll hear mentioned, but they are good enough. In fact, they are plenty good enough. I don't really have any complaint. The stick isn't particularly loud, neither are the buttons, and I quite like that. I don't want it to make an absolute racket, but we can mod it. We can upgrade the parts if you feel the need to. That's the next thing they mention after the connectivity. So it says Ultra Moddable. We will swing back round to this later in the video and talk things through. What I want to do is talk about the price. So I actually paid £70 for this. Got it from scan.co.uk. Here on Amazon, it's listed at £80. Prices fluctuate all the time. Even at £80, I don't feel that's a bad price for it. It does look premium. It is well built. I do like the look of it, but yeah, we should probably talk about some alternatives because what suits me might not suit you. So we did talk about the Mayflash F300 earlier on when comparing it to the old 8Bitdo stick. So there's the F300 Elite there. £85, although it says I can save 5% with a voucher, which will bring it down to £80, much in line to the price of this stick. Now, we can see that the F300 is compatible with consoles, so technically more versatile, and because it's the Elite Edition, as we click on it, it will tell us it has Sanwa buttons and a Sanwa lever, Sanwa joystick. So strictly speaking, it's a better arcade stick. I don't really like the look of it. It has dip switches to do the left thumbstick and D-pad and right thumbstick. There's plenty of functionality there. I just don't particularly like the look of it, and I don't care about using it with an Xbox or a PlayStation because I don't use those. I'm just a PC gamer and do a little bit with Android. So if that suits you, go for that. You don't have to upgrade it. It's already been done. Not a bad stick. We can point out the lower end of the spectrum. So I've got the F101. That's £40. You could get two of these for the price of the F300 Elite. Maybe you'd like to do that because you've got two kids and you want to play, have them play against each other, or you want to play with your child. It's really up to you. And if you think they're going to break it, £40, that's not as bad as them breaking a more expensive stick. But obviously that's not going to have competition grade parts in it. Scroll down to get to the F500 Elite. So this is 120. I've paid 70 for this. That's a good £50 price difference. So, okay, the F500 Elite also has that console compatibility. It doesn't matter to me. Yes, it's the Elite stick, so it's got the SoundWire joysticks and buttons. But with that £50, I can put that towards modding this stick and, yeah, put a little bit of personality into it. That's the next thing we can talk about, the actual parts. But yeah, there'll be plenty of sticks. You pick what works for you. There's a Razer Panthera Evo that works with the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5. It even has the touchpad built in it, but that's a £200 stick. Do your homework, find what you like. There's Hori sticks, Mad Cats, whatever works for you. We'll just show some of the alternatives. Let's talk about these parts that I've kept mentioning. So we'll talk about SoundWire basically because they're very easy to find on Amazon, and that's all to do with Raspberry Pis and how popular it's been for people to make their own home arcades. People have been doing it for quite a few years now. So I can see I can get the stick, the lever, and 8 of the buttons for £34.95. So I said £70 for the stick, and I had £50 to play with for parts if I wanted to, compared to the F500 Elite. Maybe I want to do that, but there are other options. Maybe I'm quite happy with the buttons. Maybe it's just the lever that I want to change. So they've got a SoundWire 25.95. But this one, they've bundled in the gate, an octagonal gate. So this stick, its gate is square. The stock gate on a SoundWire stick and pretty much any other lever you'll buy is also square. So let's just quickly explain what that's about. As I move the stick, right, there's the click, but I've still got more movement till I actually hit this gate, this restrictor. So what some of you will be used to doing is you've played on a gamepad, so you do Street Fighter and you roll. When you want to do a fireball, you go down and you roll it across to right and then hit your punch button. With a square gate, that becomes quite difficult to do. You go down, but because it's a square, then you hit the corner of the square and it doesn't easily want to roll up again. If you change it to an octagonal gate, it just helps you roll. They do circular gates as well. It's really what works for you, but I don't need to go that full distance. It's only till I hear that click and it's activated the switch and the character will be moving. So keep it in mind. We see we've got the cable there to connect it in. It's a 5-pin connector, bare wires on the end of it. So have a look at some of the other bits and pieces. So maybe it is cheaper to buy the bundles, but maybe I just want to buy a stick, whatever colored knob I want, and buy multicolored buttons. Maybe I'd like to have my punch buttons the same color, the kick buttons the same color, so on. Or, that's light punch, medium punch, hard punch, and kick. They're color coded. It's really up to you how much money you want to throw at it. We'll just talk about the USB encoder cables. That's saying £7. It does give me 5 of them. I don't need 5. I only need 1. But that is to connect to the lever and then easily connect it to my 8Bitdo stick without having to solder. We're going to talk about the insides of the stick in a minute. The other thing I need to point out is that to open it up, you will need a T10 screwdriver. Now, some of you might have these little snap-in bits. So I've got the T10 there. We can see it's a star. But the problem is, once I've put that into the heavy-duty screwdriver, into its socket, that might not fit into the hole on the back of the stick for me to undo it. So shouldn't really be a drama for many of you, but if you don't have the tools, maybe you do have a flathead, small flathead, that can go from point to point on one of those stars and you can carefully undo it. I've seen tech channels review this stick and complain they bought, the wrong set to undo it. I was like, you're really not very tech savvy at all if you don't have a precision toolkit in the first place. But yeah, it is a strange choice that's what they went with. 6 of these Torx 10 screws to undo it. Really should have been Phillips or whatever, but it is what it is. But once we're inside, we can see the backs of our buttons. So there's our P1, P2 macro buttons. They are a little bit smaller. I wouldn't change those. I don't really see any point. How often am I going to use them? Not very often. I don't really see any need to change them. All right, game buttons. You can see these are snap-in. You can buy buttons that have a screw to help retain them into the stick. We can't use the screw-in buttons because there's not enough room. They're right up against the circuit boards. The circuit board is what's lighting up to tell us what each button does. So we must buy those snap-in buttons, but that's not a problem. We've seen those on Amazon, easy enough to do. So to change them, we just need to pull off the connectors. They're not soldered on, we just pull those off and we'll just undo the little clips, push the button out, push the new one in and add the connectors. So do these one at a time so we don't confuse the cables and what button goes where. Very, very simple to do. Get over to the lever, the stick itself. So we can see that is the square gate. There's 4 plastic nubs on there. So if all you want to do is change the gate to an octagonal one, push in those black clips, pop off the plastic gate, put on your new one, close it up, job done. Maybe you want to change the lever completely. So this is where the options come in. So we saw on the Sanwa levers that there was the bare 5 wires. So we can see the 5 pads there. There's ground, that'll be your black wire, left, right, down, up being the red wire. So we can marry those cables up, solder them directly onto the board. Now, some of you say, Hono, I do not have a soldering iron, I do not have solder, I do not have any soldering skills. Maybe you do, but you're worried that you might burn the board and damage it. That's a valid concern. You don't have to go that route. We can unplug this 8-pin connector. To the right side of it, 1, 2, 3, 4 of those cables are grounds and the other 4 are the directions. So we can unplug that, remove the stick, take the 4 screws out, undo the knob. We're going to turn that screw, secure that screw to undo the knob, take the lever out completely. And we mentioned we can get these encoder cables. So that's only 5-pin. We're going to put it in at the left side. So the left locating lug, that helps us secure it in. The one to the right, that's obviously not going to go to the end of the connector. So I would probably shave that off with a razor blade or a Stanley blade. Be very, very careful, don't cut yourself, but just trim that right lug off. One end's going in the stick, but the other end we're going to put into our arcade stick, and we just want it to fit flush in this connector. We don't worry about the other pins. They're not being used. So it's easy enough. I don't even know that you'd need to take that lug off. It probably just push the plastic out a little bit and fit in snugly enough. If you're trying to be ghetto, do it on the cheap. We could reuse this connector. So we know to the right, all 4 of those wires are ground. We only need one of them. So the last 3, we'll take those aside. We're going to disconnect them from the stick. We'll get some insulation tape and cover up the metal so there's going to be no shorts. And we will take each of the other cables and marry them up to our bare wires. So let's have a look. So we know the black is the ground, red is up. We'll take our 2 cables, bring them together, twist the metal strands together, and then put some insulation tape around it. That's one way to do it. Very, very ghetto. You could use electrical connectors that crimp on, if that's what you want to do, or you could solder the wires together, use heat shrink to cover it up, or electrical tape. Maybe a happier soldering wires, cables together, than you are actually doing it onto the board. Do whatever suits you. End of the day, you don't have to do any of this. It's just nice to know we've got the option to upgrade or repairability. Look at it the other way. Think, well, I'm happy as it is, but if a button breaks, so be it. I'll replace all of them with competition parts. It's really up to you. I might mention earlier in the video, I don't really feel that it needs it. If I change this to a Sanwa lever, I think it's going to be much louder when I'm using it, certainly with the buttons as well. So that's just something to keep in mind. I'm quite happy with how it is. As we scroll down, we see some more nice pictures, and we see a video of it being used on a Nintendo Switch. That looks like Metal Slug and Marvel vs. Capcom. These games are really, really fun. They're really, really old, but they really do stand the test of time. I still play them today. I'd much rather play this stuff on my Android phone than anything on the Google Play Store with this touchscreen crap. So then we get down to the tech specs. So it tells us compatibility, Switch and Windows. On the actual box itself, it says Raspberry Pi as well. Just note there's no console compatibility. We've got connectivity there, so Bluetooth 2.4G with its own receiver, and of course wired with the supplied USB-C cable. It talks about the special features, ultimate software that we said about programming. The macro buttons, we've got turbo functionality, rapid fire, yeah, we've got the dimension and the weights of it. So I gave you a size comparison to the DualShock 4 pad earlier. 2 kilos of weight. It's not heavy, heavy, but it's got some substance to it. I just play with it on my lap. I find that easier than having it up on the desk, but do whatever works for you. Certainly not uncomfortable having it on my lap. Mentions the battery type and the battery life. So 1000 milliamp hour lithium ion battery, which is rechargeable. I can't really speak for the playtime. It's saying 40 hours on its own receiver, 30 hours if you do Bluetooth. I've played with it plenty, and I've gone between 2.4 and Bluetooth as I go through my PC and use it on the Shield TV on my phone and tablet, and I still haven't run the battery down. It's saying 4 hours to charge it. I believe them. No reason to disbelieve them. At the end of the day, if the battery goes dead, I plug in the USB-C cable and use it as a wired device. It's working and charging all at the same time. It's no major drama. Yeah, so it says it includes the arcade stick, comes with its wireless receiver, hidden away in the door on the back. It has its USB-C cable and an instruction manual. So there you go, guys. My final thoughts, really, really happy with it. I use it in my virtual reality arcade, New Retro Arcade Neon. So I'm in VR. I see all these cabinets. They've got their artwork, and it feels legit because I'm holding an arcade controller to play these games. Really, really, really happy with it. So that's all to do with emulation using the RetroArch software to pretend to be these arcade cabinets, to pretend to be retro consoles. I also do Taito Type X and Nesca X Live. These are both arcade rips from real arcade machines. And yeah, modern arcade cabinets are in fact gaming PCs, have been for quite some time now. Of course, we've got other software. So I've mentioned the Sega Dreamcast and Sega Saturn, all these retro consoles. You can do it for RetroArch or any other emulator, any other software. Um, that's kind of cool. And then we've got the Steam store. Every time the sales come around, so Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, they come up on sale. There's King of Fighters on there. All these beat 'em up games we can play. Probably best to wait for the sales and the money we've saved we can put towards having the stick. Is it going to make us a ninja? Is it going to make us the best beat 'em up player ever having the stick? No, but it is traditionally what you're supposed to use for arcade games. And yeah, in some ways, it can make it easier to play having the buttons rather than having to worry about triggers and bumper buttons on a gamepad. I think it can give you a slight edge once you've had the practice with the stick. So yeah, mentioned using it with the Shield TV, my phone and tablet. My brother has a Raspberry Pi, so I set that up with RetroPie and a track mode. He's got Kodi on there, so I can use it with that as well. If he wanted to, I could buy him a stick for his birthday if he thought this was kind of cool. So now you know, I've got my bases well and truly covered. More than happy with the purchase. So let's leave it there. Have a great day. Have a great evening, whatever you choose to do after watching this. And as always, I'll see you when I see you next. Ciao for now.